Some Q-tards think rich people eat babies.
I've been using all kinds of them. I've been from world on in, I've been using, I've been going to Russia to get the stem cells from there because they've been a leader in the world on, and they happen to be dealing with a very high level embryonic type of stem cell. I've been using umbilical cord, which is a big issue for China. I've been using, placenta stem cells, which is very, very powerful. I've been using the stem cell cord blood, to do for my brain and my own, taking out of my own, and then taking it, out, and then...
He's been photographed with Bill Gates and Prince Andrew. He's been accused of taking underage girls to his private island on his private jet and committing lewd and lascivious acts with them. He's worked with cutting-edge scientists all over the world and planned to build an island facility in a quest to live forever. No, it's not Jeffrey Epstein, it's the Canadian Jeffrey Epstein, Peter Nygard.
After visiting Mexico and now being here on Nygard Key, I'm just blown away by the amazing Mayan architecture. And I believe Peter Nygard may have been one of the first people to replicate the Mayan architecture in his residence. Oprah Winfrey came and featured Nygard Key, and she said, "I'm not living large enough."
To get the most out of this video, you're going to have some familiarity with my Final Revolution series, or at least the Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein relationship. But also a video that I'll link below by a channel called Danknet. It's a really good channel you should all check out, but in particular, the Peter Nygard video is a really great investigation that I'm not going to replicate for the sake of this video. I just don't have the time. I'm working on some other stuff, and it was too well done to in any way redo better. So do check out the video below, probably before, but after if you don't. Peter Nygard and the Battle of the Bahamas. And instead I'm going to be focusing on another aspect with Peter Nygard's quest, just like Jeffrey Epstein, to live forever. And this whole journey down this game of genomes has really given me a new perspective on things, and at the end of the video I'll talk about that a bit. He's called the Canadian Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, to give you a quick rundown, Canadian fashion mogul Peter Nygard, seen here getting some sort of Lifetime Achievement Award, was arrested at the end of 2020 by Canadian police at the request of U.S. investigators. See here the FBI raiding some of Nygard's property. So I just came off of watching Danknet's story, and the similarities between this guy and Epstein were just too similar for me to not make a video about it.
You and your children are changing the whole world.
My children, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Peter Nygard's eldest son, Kai, says he first heard the news early this morning and was overcome by a sense of relief, knowing that his father could soon be extradited to the United States to face severe criminal charges.
We were elated with the news. It's been incredibly intense to be on the other side of it and wonder if he was ever going to get arrested.
And then I'm like watching and I see like his elbow like change and start like moving, as if it looked to me, I couldn't see it, but it looked like his hand was like on her upper thigh or like and like rubbing. That's what it looked like to me. And as soon as but I couldn't see it, I couldn't tell.
But your mind's already locked.
But I was locked in.
I
was locked into thinking like, wait a second, wait, what, right? And then I immediately got this huge adrenaline rush.
Oh, dude, I bet.
And I and you know me, like like in those moments, like I'm not gonna back down. And so I go to the mom. I go, get her away from him. He's touching. He's feeling her up. Like get her. Yes. I said, get her away from him right now. Like blah 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 blah. And she's like, oh what really? And I'm like, yes. And she goes, takes her away. And I realized that yeah, he's probably trying to groom that girl if he hasn't already. And he's got no boundaries. And I've heard rumors of him in the past, but in some ways you're like, just like we said, oh well, blah 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 blah, a little vindication. It's hard to prove people do things.
Yeah, right.
And so at that moment, then all those other things popping up. But that was the moment.
And just like with Jeffrey Epstein, I think the really interesting story is being totally overlooked by the salacious details and the young girls, and nobody's really looking at and having a philosophical debate about what they were researching and their quest for the fountain of youth. The Sun paper says, "Sick stunt. Pedo Peter Nygard wanted girlfriends to have abortions to use fetuses for age-defying stem cell research." And it's completely true.
About any kind of disease. You must have 1,000 things that can go wrong with us, you know. And each one now has a stem cell solution to it.
It's amazing. Which one are you most passionate about?
Well, I'm most passionate really about the most powerful of all stem cells, which is embryonic stem cell. That is the stem cell that we're born with. And I now have broken through. It's called SCNT. It was announced all over the news. And I broke through taking my old skin cell. I took a woman's egg, took her DNA out of it, put my DNA into it, and grew it in vitro, and developed my own stem cell lines.
Wow.
I'm the only guy in the world today who has me in a petri dish before I was born.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. Science fiction is scientific fact. Now, that's huge, because now you can take those immortal stem cells, plant them back in your body, and renew your body parts.
Well, you're living proof of everything you say. Look at you.
Yeah. No, I have actually reversed my aging in the last 4 years. You know, that's this medical science behind it as well. They use my numbers in medical conventions, you know, before and after.
You and your children are changing the whole world.
My children, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you in LA all the time? Or are you traveling all the time?
I travel constantly around the world. I have a beautiful airplane, and I go around the world twice a year. I got factories all over the world. I got stem cell business all over the world, you know. So I'm in constant motion. You know.
And you help every woman to look thin.
Every woman to look thin with my slims, especially, yeah.
Nygard has been evading legal troubles for years, for decades. Actually, it's very interesting. He finds out a story is about to come out about him. He'll get ahead of it, and then he'll undermine it or give a counter narrative. Really ingenious and demonstrative of how these people function. So, given that he moves between countries and has assets overseas and such, when he was going to be released for bail, he swore to the judge in an affidavit that he had let his passport expire, and so he couldn't leave Canada. Although, as the CBC reports, photos have leaked of his passport showing it doesn't expire till 2025. He also got a couple of doctors to write a letter saying that he couldn't fly due to his poor health. But it's also pretty ironic for a guy who claims to be revolutionizing and undergoing all sorts of anti-aging, revolutionary stem cell treatments, and publishes photographs of himself showing off the benefits and rejuvenation he's undergone.
You know, ever since scientists discovered embryonic stem cells, they wanted to be able to tailor-make those cells with the genetic material of the patients they're trying to treat. And this is the technique that would finally be able to accomplish that goal.
From the woman's egg, we took out her DNA, put my old 70-year-old DNA in its place, grew it in vitro, developed embryonic stem cells, age 0. This is huge. This is a game changer. This could eliminate all disease. This perhaps is immortality. I may be the only person in the world who has my own embryonic stem cells growing in a petri dish. Can you imagine that? In that petri dish, that is me before I was born. Science fiction, scientific fact. I want to live forever or die trying.
Bring the action.
One man, younger at heart than those half his age, living a life most could only dream of, yet sharing his collective fortune with our collective human fate.
The way in which these stem cell lines were derived is from embryos that are created in the process of in vitro fertilization. And in fact, there are hundreds of thousands of these embryos that are simply being discarded.
We throw it in the garbage. We shouldn't do that.
And so in 2009, Peter Nygard creates Nygard Biotech.
We traveled everywhere in the world now for the last 2 years, just looking
In Shenzhen, Peter forges a partnership with BGI, the world leader in genome sequencing.
So I'm going to interrupt the clip here. Did you notice Dr. Francis Collins back there maybe 30 seconds ago? He's Dr. Fauci's boss. An interesting clip from Francis Collins and Bill Gates talking about the warehouses full of genetics data they're collecting, made one of my videos. But more importantly, here's where knowing about Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein's genetics research with George Church comes in handy. So Peter Nygard here traveled to Shenzhen and started working with the BGI group on genetic screening. And that just sounded really familiar to me. And here's why. BGI Group launches George Church Institute. BGI announced yesterday a joint effort with George Church, the guy who worked with Epstein at the Program for Evolutionary Dynamics, and launched the George Church Institute of Regenesis, located in the China National Gene Bank in Shenzhen, China, doing work on applied synthetic biology, high-intensity DNA storage, biomanufacture of natural products, and genome editing.
I initiated and helped to write the stem cell legislation, and I took them to many countries. Ultimately, the Bahamas adopted them into law.
The Bahamas now has the opportunity to host several important stem cell initiatives.
Prime Minister Christie has shown tremendous courage and political savvy in order to guide this through the legislature.
But I want you to know that stem cell legislation will be passed by us today. God bless Peter Nygard.
Now, look at my before and after pictures. I come from anti-aging to reverse aging. I've been on stem cell therapy now 4 times a year for the past 3 years. I'm a living testimonial that this really works.
The time has come.
This is a quantum leap.
The future is now.
This is Peter Nygard's message through the effort of stem cell research that God has already given us our own medicine tucked within our bodies.
As the CBC publishes, his former partner Greg Fentz, or a company executive of his, admitted to deleting 1,000 documents after a subpoena was issued ordering the retention of all documents. The latest news I found is from June 25th of this year, 2021, and it seems that he was held without bail, and on November 15th he will face trial for a hearing for extradition to the USA. He's facing charges of racketeering conspiracy to commit sex trafficking, trafficking of minors, forced sex trafficking, and transportation of a minor for prostitution. And these charges are for crimes happening between 1995 and as recently as 2020. Speaking of prostitution, you can actually rent out his island, only $35,000 to $40,000 a night. I'm sure it comes fully stocked with Wayfair furniture.
It's the explosive lawsuit that's prompted comparisons to Jeffrey Epstein and the island where he is alleged to have molested young girls. But this case involves a well-known fashion executive.
Technology that eliminates all guesswork in medical
where a
diagnosis.
number of women claim they were victims of what they call a sex trafficking ring.
Peter Nygard is one of the biggest names in fashion. The billionaire rides in a private jet with his name emblazoned on the fuselage. His flagship store is in Times Square, and he always seems to be surrounded by beautiful young women. Perhaps that explains why the 78-year-old billionaire uses anti-aging treatments to stay incredibly fit for a man his age. Nygard owns homes all over the world, including this huge estate in the Bahamas, where he's entertained Britain's Prince Andrew. Yes, that's the same British royal linked to the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Like Epstein, Nygard has a luxurious compound in the sun-kissed Caribbean.
But now there are allegations that Nygard was using this exotic paradise as a sex trafficking ring.
When you saw these latest allegations, were you surprised or not?
No, not the least bit surprised.
Victoria Sarnay says she was Nygard's personal assistant for a time in the early 90s.
The girls would come down in the morning looking absolutely dreadful and saying, you know, can you get us out of here? Can you get us out of here?
Really?
And we'd say, no, we can't, because we didn't bring you in, so you've got to go ask him for your plane ride back. Can you get us out of here? Can you get us out of here?
Really?
And we'd say, no.
So here we come to the end of the Peter Nygard story, where it stands as of now. And like I've said, doing these Game of Genomes sort of videos has put this question in my mind, and I think it's the question of our times.
Of course, we all have a fear of death, and how we overcome fear of death is that we invent this word called heaven. You know, heaven is everybody's way of living forever, and every one of us have been taught that that's the good place to go to. You know, I think instinctively we're all almost by design, by necessity, we're all designed not to fear it because there is a better place. You know, I think we all would like to live in this world as long as we possibly can, and not just go blindly into this heaven area. People's common words today in the field that I'm in, you know, is 20 to 40 more years. You know, that we can live till we're 150, for example. And it's a goal, and a good goal. I think it's really meaningful for younger people like yourself. You know, especially if you start taking care of yourself early in life, you know, and prevent yourself from getting old, and go into and start practicing all the things that are available out there. The Times magazine came up with a picture of a child face, and said that this person can live till 180 years old. You know, a person born now, you know, we have enough science now that by the time they become old, that they're going to be able to live that much longer, with all the modern day knowledge that we have right now. You know, but the byproduct of that is that if it's not for ourselves, it certainly is for our next generation of people. You know, so we really got to take this seriously. I think this is the first time in history that we really could see us being able to extend our life like big time, not just a year or two, you know, but have a leapfrog time. And an interesting parallel to that, we're also seeing the world self-destructing. There's a big element in here in the world today that says that the next generation is not even going to live as much as our generation, because we're just killing yourself from eating, you know, killing yourself from diabetes, you know, we're self-indulging the point. So while we have the opportunity to live 40 years longer, what we're going to do is blow it and live less, you know. And this is all about the education process now. You know, it's how people really want to approach this thing. You got these two sides going at you all the time. You know, those people who just don't care, you know, and just going to eat themselves to death, you know, and get full of diabetes and die younger. And then there's going to be a whole new generation of people who are of sort of in my camp, you know, who sees the opportunities and see that early, you know. So I talk to some my girlfriends and young people around me to start taking care of it, that stop aging at the age of 25, because when you hit age 25, it's all downhill from there. So you want to stay at 25, start doing it right now, because you can. And you can, yeah. And
do we start striving for immortality as soon as possible, as Peter Nygard says? Or do we reject gene therapies and stem cells and relent to aging and disease? And some will choose this path out of religious or moral or ethical ideas, or just pure technophobia. Others will choose this path of longevity, and in all likelihood, it will work, if anything like that is ever going to work at all. And it somehow seems very different when you're looking at sci-fi series that are centuries ahead of now. But, you know, this kind of thing never seemed so ghoulish when it was in Star Trek. Imagine the med bay having a baby smoothie machine instead of a healing laser. And I'm truly of both minds on this one. I can't make a decision, you know. I try to eat healthy and exercise. Is that the root of the same thing?
If you could give one piece of wisdom to the generations younger than you, what would it be?
Oh, it's overwhelmingly to start your anti-aging now. Get aware of your body. Learn about your body when you're 25 right now, because you are on your way downhill after 25. You know, you are down, and it's going to slide. You grow from baby all the way to 25, and after that you slide down. You know, continue to slide. Don't let it happen. preventive medicine is where it's at, not emergency medicine. Don't take your life for granted. Don't eat sugar, for example. Don't smoke. You smoke and eat sugar, for example, you're going to die. So you got to start getting out of those bad habits early in life. So you really got to get the message across to the young people very early in life that you cannot start your anti-aging early enough. And the earlier you start, the better chance you have of extending your life, by big time. You started at 25, man. Who knows how long you live.
Mm-hmm.
It all sounds very appealing in a way, but then again, we are literally hearing a sales pitch from a living devil, allegedly.
This is the biggest thing that's ever happened in the history of the world. This is way bigger than electronics. The electronic boom, the computerization. This business is 10 times the size of that, and there's nothing bigger than in this world that's ever seen. If people really want to invest into something, this is meaningful investment now. You'd be investing into yourself, and into yourself or livelihood. And man, there's not a better investment, technically your charity starts at home. And better you can, just like in an airplane, they tell you to take that gas mask, put it on yourself first, because if you don't put it on yourself, you can't help the other guy, Well, this is what this is about, I've done it for myself first, and because I've done myself, I can help other guys, etc. More people I can get into this business now, join me, like-minded people, the faster we'll get these solutions done, And there's many of us in the same field, who are waving that same flag, So that's just one voice, but I perhaps have done it more actively than anyone else. I put perhaps as much or more money than anybody else is in it. I've met with all the best doctors in the world, and I've used my own body as a guinea pig. So that last part is very critical. So I've already put my body where my mouth is at the end of the day, and the good news is that it's worked.
By the way, he's supposed to be a fashion icon, and this double sweater zipper thing is what he wore for an interview.
Is there any associate that you could refer me to talk to about this later? On another day.
I got my own medical scientist. This is my chief scientific officer.
Hello?
She's the number one in stem cells in the world.
It's amazing.
So I just brought up a little bit speed as what I was doing. She's responsible for my body. Nothing goes into my body without her approval.
I like that.
She's in charge of it. So you can talk to her about it more now.
Thank you so much.
Her name is Jyoti.
Josie?
Yeah, I'm Dr. Jyoti Devakumar.
Okay.
Hi.
You look stunning. You're
Thank
a beautiful
you.
woman.
Thank you.
Now listen closely to what you're about to hear.
Now, I was telling him that there's a guy that plays volleyball at his house sometimes who saved my life. He's a physical therapist at the Center for Neuroskills in Encino. And, I'm seeing people, I wasn't walking 2 months ago. And I'm seeing other people like me that are going from not walking to walking. And it's been amazing, just the technology that nobody knows about.
Now, I don't know the exact details of this guy's injuries, but if you watch his hand motions, it's pretty clear that he's had some sort of trauma, and yet he seems vastly recovered from whatever that is, and he seems to believe in this stem cell treatment he got.
So his name is Mark Takzak, and he works at this place, Center for Neuroskills, which is the only place in the country that gets people walking and talking again. What has kept this from becoming widely used here?
Any new technology goes through a phase of criticism, a lot of rejection, and finally acceptance.
So I hope the conclusion to this video left you with a lot to think about, and I hope that you'll put your thoughts down in the comment section, because in a way Peter Nygard is right. This is a topic of our times and nobody knows about it yet, aside from just about everybody who you wouldn't want to.